This week's episode is in partnership with Intact Insurance, here for you and for everything you care about. Hello, everybody. It's the Jann Arden podcast. Those are all the wrong notes. I'm Jann Arden. We are here with Caitlin Green, Adam Karsh. They're coming to you live and in person from Toronto in their respective. Adam's still in his basement. He's still got weird stuff behind him on the wall. Is that behind you on the wall, Adam? I've wanted to talk about this. It looks like an old stereo that has like a cassette deck and a DVD CD player.
It has a 5-disc CD changer. It has a double cassette. This is actually the first big purchase I bought myself when I got the job at Chum Radio all the way back in 1998. So that's my old stereo that doesn't get used anymore because all my music is on my iPhone now.
I know. I was going to say, why do you have it? Why do you have it?
Just in case I want to break out one of my cassettes. I don't know.
I loved the cassette. You have to be a certain age to appreciate what you needed to do with a pencil and a cassette, because I drove this Monte Carlo car, which was like a land barge, terrible on gas. I think it got like 1 kilometer per gallon. And the cassette deck always ate the tapes. You guys can relate to me on this. So you'd hear that sound, and then you'd pull the cassette out and be like, son of a crap. The tape is stuck in there, and then you'd have to get that out without busting it. And then you'd get the pencil and roll the tape back in. It was like the perfect size. I used to use my pinky too.
I was just going to say that. Sometimes I would jam my pinky in there and it would have the little like teeth marks on it afterwards. I still remember doing that.
Oh my word. Well, I still have my cassette deck downstairs, Adam, so don't feel bad. I don't want to throw it out. I too have cassettes. And further to that, I have a giant plastic bin filled with songs that I wrote that are all in cassette, like hundreds of them.
Oh, that's cool.
I used to buy packs of 10 at the co-op, those TDK 30-minute cassettes. Mm-hmm. And I probably still have a few packages that are unopened because I wrote a lot of songs and I put them on cassettes and I'd give them to my manager at the time, but I still have them. I want to sit down one day and go through them and stick those cassettes in and see what the hell songs are on there. I'm sure they're terrible.
I listened back to like even probably 3 or 4 years ago when I was on the radio, and I think I sounded terrible too. Like I can't hear, the sound of my voice is different. Like we played an old bit from our like a show 2 years ago on the air recently, and we have a relatively new producer, and he said, "Oh my God, like is that Caitlin?" And like my voice sounds honestly quite different. It could just be the processing or the microphone we were using at the time. Who knows? But it would be so funny for you to go back and listen to all those old songs, not just because of what you were writing about, but also probably because of what you sounded like.
I don't disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I think anyone even leaving voice messages like on your answering machine or on your phone, none of us really like hearing our voice. Hi, you've reached Adam Karsh. This is 555-917. I mean, you hear your voice and you're like, oh my God, is that what I sound like? Because we hear ourselves from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
So we're hearing our voice from the inside our head. I've always thought I sounded annoying, and my singing voice has changed a lot. I mean, it has changed a lot over the years. You just sound young, I guess. A voice ages.
Yeah.
Like Joni Mitchell's singing voice in latter records, for one thing, she dropped like complete octaves, but I don't know who I loved more, the older Joni Mitchell singing voice or the younger Joni singing voice. And I think Joni herself actually said she much preferred her voice as she got older. That the timbre and the register of it, I mean, just if you got time today, go pull up 2 Joni songs, one from the 90s and one from the 60s, and you will not even believe it's the same person.
Yeah, I prefer my voice as I've gotten older a little bit too, because I felt like I sounded, I don't know, just not as smooth or like more nasally, or I just didn't like how I sounded when I was younger as much as now. But I do worry that, because I relate to the whole octave lower, because my voice sounds a lot deeper on air now than it used to. And I feel like I'm like, am I becoming like Stockard Channing or something? And I'm going to sound like I've been smoking a pack a day by the time I'm 50. Like what's happening? And I have a low voice to begin with. Like I was the one alto girl alto in our choir growing up.
Oh.
So I didn't have octaves to go down to begin with. So I don't know what's going to happen.
I wanted to share a little story with you guys. Was quite exciting for me. My friends, Nigel and Charlie, who live in London, I might have mentioned them on this show before, certainly Nigel.
Yeah.
They flew to Bermuda yesterday.
That's where my brother-in-law, that's where my family lives. I want to go so badly. How was it?
Okay. He said it was fantastic. They boarded in Gatwick.
Okay.
He gave me his flight number. British Airways are still flying the routes because, and I said this to Nigel, how can they make money? He said there was 40 people on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
It's about an 8-hour flight from the UK. He said they were in business class. There was 4 people in the entire business class.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was in masks. They had no interaction with the flight attendant, except for they dropped the dinner box off and then a little snack bag near the end of the flight. But they were not given any bottle service. If they wanted a drink, it came I think a vodka soda was in a can.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just be, they had gloves and a mask, but they had no interaction. They had to ring the bell to use the washrooms. And then you'd go in and use the washroom. And as soon as you came out, Nigel said you've never seen a cleaner aircraft washroom in your life. Remember how they used to be?
Yes.
There'd be urine everywhere.
Oh.
There'd be toilet paper that were stuck on the side. It was disgusting.
So
Flying
disgusting.
and going peeing in an air. It was disgusting. We let it go too far. Now it's like Nigel's like, I could have eaten off that floor. I really could have. And he said after you come out, they'd go in with like a little bomb thing and they'd spray it down. And the bathroom had to be shut for like 60 seconds before the next person went in.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite the thing. But he said it was a wonderful flight. They felt really safe. He said we were absolutely 6 feet away from everybody in our cabin. And when they landed, they got tested.
Yep.
And they had to go straight to they had to give their address and everything. And further to that, they had to apply for a permit to go to Bermuda. So they had to be approved and they had to be tested negative and show that to the Bermudians before. So there's quite a few tests involved and they had to pay for it.
Yeah.
I know I'm going on and on here, and I know it sounds like a rigmarole, but Nigel said he would do it again in a second.
So that's what I've been debating about doing the exact same thing he just did, because those same rules apply for us, and we could go conceivably at any time to Bermuda. You get the test before you go, you show that it's negative, you get on the flight procedures like that, and then when you get there, you do the next test. And my brother-in-law and his wife and their 3 children live there. And they keep saying, please come visit us, like stay for 2 months for crying out loud. And they have a beautiful house with a pool. And they said on the island, there are very few cases. They had to go into an extreme lockdown right away because they have very limited hospital space. So they weren't messing around for like months on end. They were very, very locked down, like New Zealand level lockdown.
Yeah.
And so as a result, once you get there, it's very safe. So, and like we had thought about it. It's funny though that you mentioned how dirty airplanes used to be, because I honestly feel that my assessment of airlines pre-COVID is what has made me so apprehensive about returning to flying, because I've gotten sick from being on a flight more times than I can count. And I find the flight, even when I was in like a premium economy or upgraded to a different class, like I still felt like I had to wipe down every single surface when I got on board. And when I did, my wipes would be like black when I was done with them. And so it's made me scary to hop on. So I'm really relieved to hear that he had a good flight experience. And like WestJet runs direct flights to Bermuda from Toronto. And honestly, it's like just over 2 hours or something, or 3 hours to get there. And it's direct. So it's a nice little short flight. I mean, we'll see how things go with our numbers. I might do it eventually.
Well, they got their tests back this morning. Yesterday. Because they got tested as soon as they landed. You're given a number, you go down a hallway, there's 2 people there in hazmat suits, you get the nasal swab, you're given a number, get your stuff. They went straight to their hotel. They had groceries delivered. So they phoned in advance, and there was a grocery store that delivered to this house that they're renting. Their tests came in yesterday. They're both negative. They will be tested again in 4 days. They still have to stay in the house. They can't go out to restaurants or anything. So the test in the 4 days, if it's negative, then they can go out into the town. And they have friends there. They've had friends there that have lived there for, 100 years.
Yeah.
Their family's been there for a long, long time.
Well, that was our take too. Like we would basically get to like my brother-in-law's house. They'd obviously have everything set up. We'd, until we wait that first 24-hour period for that initial test result, we'd be like away from them, like at like a wing of the house or something. And then you wait. And when the 4-day test result came back, we could go to the beach, we could hop on their boat, we could do whatever. And I really thought about it during the dead of winter. I thought maybe we'll want to go. Yeah, we might. We honestly might. I'm really waiting to see how this next little bump of cases we have in Ontario right now pans out. Because I sense that if it gets worse in the next few weeks, nobody will really be hopping on planes for a little while. Hopefully then we flatten that out, and come Christmas we'll be back in the well, I'm like, is it red that you're supposed to go into? No, black. Both sound terrible. Both are terrible color references right now.
Well, they really are. I think, not to be a negative Nelly, but I think they warned us of this. They said there's going to be a second wave. And so I'm not surprised by it. Of course people drop their guard a little bit, and then we've got all these kids back in schools, and, all these things contribute. So I think we have to be careful once again, not to shame people, not to point fingers. It doesn't help anything. It's difficult to see. I always worry about our medical, frontline workers and the nurses and all the health practitioners, because of course it puts pressure right back on them. They just kind of came out of this, and but this was to be expected. So I think people need to keep that in mind. It's not like, oh my God, nobody warned us, nobody told us. This is completely unacceptable. We were completely told about this over and over and over again, and we were told about it in July.
Yeah, I just hope the government enforces some common sense measures this time around, because the fact that, again, here in Ontario, we had a horrible situation with our long-term care homes. Well, that was partially because the government decided to let people who tested positive for COVID but were asymptomatic go into work. And then look what happened. They did the same thing with migrant workers here, and they live in congregate housing there. So again, look what happened. That became a hotspot. So sometimes I feel like they get up and do these press conferences where the government's like, oh, I'm so upset with all the people, and they pull the angry dad card. And then behind everyone's back, their policies don't match. So I hope there's some policy matching that happens this time around.
You're listening to the Jann Arden podcast. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to the Jann Arden Show and Podcast. Oh my gosh. Did you guys watch episode 1 of the Jann Show?
I did.
Thanks.
Not yet. I'm going to, not yet, but I watched all the teasers and the trailers, and I watched some of your press.
That's all you need. It feels so good to have it out there in the world. Today, the reason I bring that up, you're probably thinking, oh gosh, she's just doing all this self-promotion again. Deborah Grover, who plays my mom, Nora, is going to be on the show today. And Elena Jautco, who is a Canadian Idol alumni, she plays Cale, one of my managers on the show. And she does a fantastic job. She's going to be with us today. And I'm going to be talking to them about auditioning for the Jann Show and kind of what that was like to go through. I'm very curious to hear what they have to say. But thank heavens that it's out there. And on another very self-serving note, ladies and gentlemen, I have a record out today. It came out yesterday. It's called Gems, Hits and Other Gems. And it's got some of your favorites on it from Universal Records, and some things you haven't heard before. Just there's a really cool version of Insensitive on there that's very much worth checking out. I do also a song by The Cure called Love Song with Scott Hellman.
Oh,
and we
cool.
We recorded that in a hotel room with his band in a hotel room. So if you were the person beside us in that hotel room last year, sorry about that.
I love that song, and I also love Scott Hellman. So that's really fun.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So yeah, that came out yesterday. You can find that on all your favorite streamers, Spotify, iTunes.
The cool thing I find, I really love the first episode. I love last season of the Jann Show as well. But I noticed, I'm sure you guys caught the Emmys and you saw Schitt's Creek run away with every single award this year.
I was cheering like a maniac.
Loved it. It was such a great moment. And, they're all up there at Casa Loma, and they had their viewing party there in the city. And apparently people in Toronto on Twitter were saying they could hear the celebrations at Casa Loma, and they were just so thrilled. It was just this great local win for Canada. And the tie-in for me to your show is that Schitt's Creek was so good and so funny for so long here in Canada. And we have this like complex sometimes with Canadian content where we don't think it's as good as it is. And we are late to our own party. And I think that's what happens sometimes with, a lot of these great shows that get produced. And then, this was a case of it gets picked up and carried on Netflix, and the US is all over it. And then Canadians are like, oh, should I start watching? I'm like, yes, give it a shot. If you tried it and you didn't like it, that's fine. But if you just were like, oh, I don't know, it's Canadian, so you don't get into it, I'm like, hello, our stuff is hilarious. And like, your show's a great example. I'm like, don't sleep on Canadian comedies because we make funny stuff.
Yes. I think even going back to the SCTV days,
yes,
I cannot tell you how many laughs those guys provided for me. And I guess not so much ironically, but having Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy that were, part of that gang, late 70s that made Canada laugh for so long. We were all so proud of SCTV.
Mm-hmm.
And so many epic sketches came out of that show. And that began shooting in Edmonton, of all places, in a little studio. I remember a guy I was doing press up there years ago, and he's like, this is like my favorite studio. They used to shoot SCTV in here. And I was like, what? And we all freaked out. And they had some of the old few little things in there. After all these years, they've still saved some stuff. Yeah, this was the set for the blah, blah, blah. I was like thrilled. Anyway, Dan Levy made a great tweet a day or two after the Emmys. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, hey, you know what? Thank God, the CBC and Pop TV, this show would have been pulled after the first year for underperforming.
Yeah.
And he said, comedic shows, these types of shows need time to develop and for people to be endeared by these characters. And I love that tweet. I retweeted it, and I'm sure I commented just thanking Dan for saying something like that. Shows do need time. I mean, we're in our second season, and, anyone that thinks there's a lot of money to be made, certainly in Canadian television, would be sadly mistaken. None of us are, making any kind of money. We're doing it in hopes that we're being entertaining,
mm-hmm.
that we can get out there and show the world. Like, I know everyone on our set, cast and crew included, producers, we so want the world to see Canada and to see what we do here.
Yeah.
And so thanks for Schitt's Creek. I thought we were being punked. I thought the first hour of the Emmys, I thought someone was going to come on and go, we were kidding.
But like, I just think, again, you've got Lorne Michaels, Canadian, behind SNL. You've got Jim Carrey, of course, Catherine O'Hara, Andrea Martin,
John Candy
for crying out loud.
Moranis.
It's crazy to me. Martin Short, who's like
Ryan
one of my
Reynolds.
Yeah, there's so much hilarious talent here, and
Brendan Fraser.
And they all get and again, same thing. Think about I always think of Trailer Park Boys. I found that show hilarious.
Trailer Park Boys is so funny.
I thought it was so funny. I remember Jonathan Torrance, when he would do Jonavision and stuff. I thought he's so funny. Even you go back to Corner Gas, Little Mosque on the Prairie, The Red Green Show. We have so many Canadian comedies that, again, if you tried them out and they don't resonate with you, that's fine. Working Moms, Baroness von Sketch. It's just really crazy when you don't even give it a try, and Canadians almost dismiss it out of hand. And I'm like, we need to learn how something they've mastered in the US, which is marketing ourselves and thinking that we're good. Because lots of crappy stuff comes out of the US and people watch it in huge numbers. And I think it's just the success of marketing.
Well, even, going beyond the comedy sphere, Avonlea ran for so many years.
Aunt Hetty.
Heartland is on season 14.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're in 60 or 70 countries about the West, here, horsemanship and ranching and,
look at Letterkenny.
Letterkenny. I mean,
Letterkenny has had huge success in the southern US, and its success there almost kept it going here, which is crazy.
Well, we have 1 minute left. Adam comes up and he has, I want to say Adam's giving me the finger, but it's the middle pointing finger.
No,
So
it's the
that's
index
okay.
finger. 1 minute. Now
Oh
50
my gosh.
seconds.
Well, you guys will be glad that we have 50 seconds left, because you know what I wanted to, I'm glad we talked about Canadian television, because it is important, and congratulations to all our friends at Schitt's Creek.
Yes.
This Canadian and these Canadians on this show could not be prouder of you. We are inspired. I think what the Schitt's Creek gang has done for this country to put Canadian television, Canadian comedy back on the map where it should be. We thank you so much. I was going to talk about politics because everyone looked at me and I was like, I really want to talk about Trump not wanting to like step down peacefully if he's not elected. And Caitlin's eyes kind of looked up into the ceiling. Well, yeah, I have a few comments. Anyway, you guys, thanks for listening to the Jann Arden podcast. We've got so much coming up. Stay with us. Deborah Grover, Elena Jautco are up next. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Jann Arden podcast. I'm Jann Arden. I'm leaning over to pick up my dog and put her on the couch. That was not me bearing down to have some kind of a weird bowel movement, because that just sounded weird on the internet. I'm here with two amazing people, and I know, worst segue ever, two amazing people that I have gotten to know over the last couple of years. Deborah Grover, who plays Nora on the Jann show. Yay, applause, ha, ha. And Elena Jautco, who plays the diabolical Cale with a C, she's here today. Hi, girls.
Hi, Jen. Hi.
So where am I speaking to you guys? Deborah, where are you?
I am in the kitchen of my house here in Toronto.
Lovely. And Elena, you're in Toronto as well, right?
I'm also in Toronto in my spare bedroom that I've turned into a music room.
I love it. You've got guitars back there and everything. I'm going to absolutely talk about you and your music, Elena. But first of all, I want to start, and I'll start with you, Deborah. I want to start just right from the beginning of the audition process to go into a show like Jann. You guys get these calls to do auditions. This was all new for me. I had no friggin' clue how it works. And I remember flying into Toronto to be able to see some of these auditions. So I saw both of you women auditioning. I was sitting there at the table. So I'm going to shut up, and I'm just going to let Deborah speak to her experience first.
Well, Jan, it was, first of all, I had just finished your book the morning of, when I was going in for my callback, but it was like,
about my mom.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And it was like, oh my gosh, so full with emotion, but it was like, I'm going to walk into a room and meet this amazing woman, you, Jann Arden, and I'm going to have the opportunity for that 2 minutes, 5 minutes to be with you, to experience you, who had just created this amazing work of art, let alone all the beautiful songs that you've written. But we were in awe. We were in the waiting room, and there were other people in there, having their callbacks. It's like, oh my God, we're getting to meet her. We're getting to meet her. And then you walk in and you try to be calm, and you're calm. And I'm going, oh, my heart is beating so fast.
Well, it's already nerve-wracking coming to an audition, I would imagine. And I never thought about that. I never thought that, sitting there might be a bit daunting. But you seem very cool and calm to me, Deb.
Well, thank you for that. But it was like, we wanted the opportunity to meet you, Jan. That was it for me. And I thought, okay, the bonus is I'm getting to read for her wonderful mother. And then when you got up, and then recognizing our dear Ron Murphy, our director who I'd worked with before, and it was like, oh, this is okay. Yeah. There are familiar faces here. And then you get up and you're going to read with me. Well, first of all, you give me this big, big hug when I arrive. And
remember when we used to hug each other?
Oh, I know.
Like you could hug people you don't even know. So in the audition process, just to walk everybody back, everyone that would be coming in to read for the part of Nora, they read the same piece. So Cale coming in, Elena coming in would read the same piece for Cale that the other actresses would read as well. I was quite struck by how much you looked like my mom, Deb. And my mom was very, very petite, and she was quite thin. I was the antithesis to my mother. I'm like the bull in the china shop. My dad used to say, you're the sturdiest singer in Canada. I'm like, I don't know what that means. But yeah, you really it was so nuanced and great, and I learned a lot that day to watch these words come to life. Both you and Elena were just, you made things come to life. It seemed real. It seemed like this is now happening.
And you, because you stood up and you came and you read opposite me and you were right there, and there I went, oh, mother, daughter. And I looked into your face and I went, oh my gosh, you are really here with me. You were so open and so giving and generous. And I went, wow.
Can I ask you what the experience is for you, Cale, Elena? Like coming in and doing that, is it nerve-wracking?
So nerve-wracking. Yeah.
Oh,
so especially when they say Jann Arden's going to be in the room. So I think I told you I practiced meeting you just so I wouldn't like have like just like
I feel terrible now,
and then just like screw up the rest of my audition. Yeah, it was. But there's something, you're so nervous going in because it's also the worst casting office in the city. Like, love you, Lisa, but it's a narrow, tiny little hallway with like blah walls. You're so close to everyone. It's so claustrophobic in that tiny room. There's no bathroom.
And you're looking at other people that are coming in to read?
I met all the other, I think you guys saw 75 Cales. I like saw so many beautiful Cales in the waiting room. We're all like giving each other thumbs up. But there's something when you just go into the room, something takes over and you're just in it. And I remember getting to read with you, but also how fun it was getting to read with Jason Blicker.
I'd never done it before. Well, fast forward, Jason Blicker, who plays Todd, the irony of that, you guys reading together, is that Jason got the part of Todd.
Yeah.
So that was just a serendipitous pairing. I wish I would have known more about the process. I wish I would have known, maybe me being there was a bit of a detriment, but I felt like I needed to see everybody.
No, it's not.
No.
Well, what I've since learned is, everyone keeps telling me it doesn't work this way, Jann. It doesn't work this way. This isn't how it happens. So I think being naive going into making a television show can be quite beneficial. Tell me about the call you received when you found out you got your respective parts. Deb?
Oh, I was at the cottage. My daughter and her guy had just gone off in the kayak, and I was sitting there, and we'd been waiting for a few days going, okay, is it me? Is it 3 other people? How many people are up for Nora here? And then I get the call and it's like, oh my God. And I'm waving to them, come back. You got to hear my news. Because then 2 days later, we were on a plane and we were going to Calgary.
Wow.
So it was like it happened that fast.
You had 2 days? I had 1.
Or, well, maybe it was just 1. No, maybe it was just 1.
Elena, where were you?
I was in Toronto. I was heading to a cottage for the weekend. I had prepped because I was like, oh, I don't think I got Jann. That's okay. I'm going to move on. It's going to be great. And I got the call early in the morning and it was like, can you be on a plane this afternoon? And I was like, laundry. I need clothes. I can't. I need to do laundry.
Is that normal for it to be pushed so close to rehearsals and shooting?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no, depending on the project. Yeah, and everybody has to have their say in terms of approval, network approval. You may like us, the director may like us, but do all the producers, and then it goes somewhere else. So it's quite a process. So it takes time. It does take time.
I can assure you that we as a team got every single person we wanted. So kudos to CTV.
Yay, thank you, CTV.
Yeah, but like you said, Deb, there are a lot of levels to casting a show, especially, a mainstream contemporary scripted comedy. And there is a lot of people that want to throw their hats in the ring as far as their opinions. But CTV, and I'm not saying this just because we're on CTV, this group of people championed every single person that we said, we really want this person. We did not face opposition. We did not face someone going, nope, we're not doing that. You've got to do him. You've got to do her. And so I guess I was naive. I was like, gee whiz, that was such a nice process.
But on the other hand, for you, they gave you this amazing trust.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. They said, okay, we trust your vision. We trust who you see playing these parts. And I had the feeling when I walked in the room that I went, oh my gosh, she is just so focused on who we are. And you knew. I think, well, the feeling I got was that you knew when we walked in the room, yes or no.
I pretty much did. And Ron Murphy, with both you and Elena, Ron was, I remember him saying about Elena, she takes direction. And I now I've learned what that meant. We've got so much to talk about. Thank God we're going to come back with these two incredible actresses that are they make the show. We hang so much emotion off of both of these women. You're listening to the Jann Arden podcast. I'm here with Deborah Grover and Elena Jautco. Don't go away. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Jann Arden podcast. I am here with Deborah Grover, who plays Nora, who plays my mother on the Jann show on CTV, Monday nights at 8 p.m. And also Elena Jautco, who plays the fierce and somewhat annoying but somewhat endearing Cale with a C, who is my manager. She, in season 1, battled it out with Jason Blicker, who plays Todd. That was Freudian. And, so we find ourselves back in Jann's world again for season 2. Where were you guys for episode 1 of season 2? Are you excited to finally air it? Because we did finish this season last October. So it's been a long wait because of COVID. I've talked about that a lot on the show, of how we were March, then we were May, then we were August, then we were September. Where were you, Elena?
I was at home with my dog, Samson, cuddled on the couch. And I was like oddly nervous. Like I was so nervous for the first time. I don't know why. I think it was because we filmed it so long ago that I just didn't remember.
It's probably as new to you guys as it is to the audience. I was looking at it going, I don't even remember learning these lines.
There's too many to learn. Yeah. You got to remember them and then just get it out of the brain so you can put new ones in. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Deb, were you at home with your family?
I was at home just with my husband. My daughter, Tess and Jordan, they were watching in their own home. Well, so they said. And yeah, but it was like, my husband and I and the dog in the living room. And it was, like Elena said, it was like, oh my gosh, what did we do? What was that first episode about? Oh my God. And then you go, oh yes, the Sarah McLachlan episode. So, Jann, to see you and Sarah on the screen together, it was like so wonderful to see you two singing Canadian dynamos on the screen together, fighting about a scrunchie. That was unbelievable.
Well, it's a heritage moment, isn't it? I think this whole show hinges on everyone being able to make fun of themselves. So even when we have guest stars, and I think you guys would agree, they come in and they're willing to make fun, even though they're playing themselves. They're willing to make fun of themselves. And Sarah was a great sport. And thank God we had stunt people.
God bless them. God
bless stunt people.
I heard on this, what is it, the pop-up video? Or I can't remember. That the two, which is amazing, by the way, Mitty's such a star, that the two stunt women, Shauna and Megan, it looked too real the first time they did it. It looked too violent.
It was very violent.
Because they're both strong women. Like Megan is an MMA, she's training to do an MMA fight. She won her first fight by a rear chokehold. I saw that video. She's fierce. You've got a fierce stunt double. So I love
that. Sounds like a Tinder date that I went on, but anyway. Yeah, the old rear chokehold. It's the only way to get him to pay for dinner.
Right.
So we have big plans. And I think that's what I love about everybody on this show is that everyone has been so positive. And what I've learned from you guys has been, you've been so generous of spirit. I came into this not knowing a thing. And I don't know if it's always like that on sets, but the kindness, the generosity, everyone willing to help. No one's even been bossy or I want different water. Is it always like this on sets?
Not necessarily, but I will say that on day 1 of season 1, you came in and you set the tone. You walked into the makeup and hair trailer and you just went, What is it with you guys? We're here at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm a musician. For gosh sakes. You set the tone then. It was like, welcome aboard. We're going to laugh and have a wonderful time. I've been acting for all of, 30 seconds now. But those were your very words. And I went, oh my gosh. We're just going to play. We're just going to hang out together and play. You gave us permission.
Elena, thank you so much for that. I would be remiss, Elena, if I didn't mention that you were on Canadian Idol. I would be remiss to say that you are an incredible singer, an incredible musician. Tell me about that experience a little bit about Canadian Idol, because I've actually heard people when we're out. I remember somebody recognizing you, going, "Hey, you were in Canadian Idol," and you were very gracious about it. You're like, "Yeah, it was like 40 years ago, but I was there."
Elena, how old are you?
I was 18 when I tried out, and I thought I was going to be a doctor and make my mother's dreams come true. So I think I went in and I was like, okay, if they tell me I suck and I become one of those joke auditions, then I'll know I can go and do that. And it was never meant to be. And then I just got further and further and further. And I was like, oh my God, like I can do my passion. I can do what I love for a living. So that was amazing in itself. It was.
I think your mom is cheering you on now, though.
She is. She is. You know what? I wish I had recorded the phone call I made to her when I booked Jann. Like, I've never heard her scream like that. It was like just so excited. And usually, like, I don't usually share auditions with my mom because I don't want her to get upset if I don't get it. You know what I mean? But I did after the callback, actually, with you and with Jason. I was talking to her and I was like, you know what, Mom, I'm just going to tell you, I had a really great day today. I got to audition for this great show. I met Jann Arden, and it felt so good. And no matter what happens, it was just so awesome. And she was so happy for me. And so when I booked it, she just let out this big scream and this like maniacal laugh. Oh my God. I wish I recorded it. Yeah.
I love that those moments of joy exist, because I know both of you could probably talk to me for 2 hours about very difficult auditioning. I think people need to understand what actors go through to get these parts, to be on television, to be in theater, to get movie parts. It's so arduous. And sometimes when you're on the third callback and, you feel very scrutinized. And I think especially as women, as we make our way through lives, you guys have really have put yourself in harm's way, I think, emotionally. So I really commend you for putting your hearts out there. It's very risky to put yourself in vulnerable positions. And as an actor, you'd probably agree, Deb, you have to be vulnerable. You have to have that sternum cracked open and let people see who you are, or no one believes your part.
Absolutely right. And it takes time to get there. As a person in my own life, when I first started out as a young actor, I felt things were on the surface and I wanted to be this young, sparkly kind of gal. And then as you age, thank you.
Hallelujah.
Universe.
I'm with you, Deb.
I'm still here, baby.
I'm with you, Deb.
I'm still here. You go, all of that drops away. All of that drops away. And you go, I'm just going to come and be open and show up to this magnificent party that you're asking me to be part of. So that is the gift that I've been given, that I continue to work. Holy smokes. As an actress, as an actor of a certain âge, which I definitely am. I've got a few years on me, Jann, I do. But that I am being allowed to continue doing what I love. Holy smokes.
Deborah, you're responsible for all the teary moments, I think, in the Jann show. Elena would agree with this. We hang a lot of the drama on you. Elena and I get to kibbutz and try dresses on and be at award shows. And we hang an awful lot of tears on you, Deb. And you are, like both you guys, Elena, you're part of Cale. You have a really... And people saw that in season 1, very dramatic. The person that you've created is, gosh, it's so much better than even it was on anything in my deepest imagination of what you've done with Cale,
Oh,
because she's tough to play, isn't she?
She's fun to play. I had so much fun with her.
But she's got a stick so far up her butt.
I know, and I love her. I love her for it. I had so much fun playing her. I think that's the thing. Like, acting gives you such freedom to like explore someone else's life and circumstance and how they respond to things.
Yeah, I just, and everyone has commented on both you guys so many times, the sense of pride that I have walking around in the world, going through the airport, and the comments that people make about the whole cast. They'll say, oh, I love your show. And then they'll talk about Max and Dave and Cale and Todd and Nora and Charlie. Oh. And everybody has their favorite characters. And do you guys find that? Like, it's great that everyone loves the family. Like, we have created this family. And people come up to me and they just are dying to know. They're like trying to get stuff out of me. And I'm like, I can't tell you.
I love that.
Like, we're trying to get out of you for season 3. Like,
oh gosh. Well, we are writing season 3 of the Jann Show. For those of you that just joined us, I'm with Deborah Grover, who plays Nora, my mom, and Elena Jautco, who plays Cale, my manager. We always do this in the show. I've started this a few weeks ago. I'm really curious. I'm going to ask you guys in these last couple of minutes, what was one of your favorite school lunches when you were kids? Like, I got it. I think it's so interesting to find out what the hell people's mothers put in their lunch kit, or what you wanted, Deb.
Oh, well, I'm just a normal peanut butter gal,
Good.
But sometimes, yeah, I was the peanut butter sandwich gal.
That's perfect.
And with a few little cheese strings on the side, and that was it. But the bologna sandwiches, I didn't like, Jen.
Okay.
I really didn't.
Nobody wants nostrils and arse.
You're right.
Elena?
You're right.
I love this question. Every time
well, you're ending the show with your answer, so there you go.
I always had one of those lunches that the kids would be like, what is that? I loved like leftover Chinese food, like thick rice noodles, the beef and the Chinese, like the bok choy. Like I love like noodles. And there was this like,
oh, I love that.
It was like a Filipino purple coconut thing. It was like looked like a pancake. I don't even know what was in it, but it was like my favorite. You peel over. It was just so like little lychee cups and stuff. But I love that stuff. I loved it.
A lychee cup. You were the only kid. Listen, what a pleasure. You're special, and you deserve lychees. I wish I would have had lychees in my lunch. You've been listening to the Jann Arden podcast. Deb Grover, Elena Jautco from the Jann Show, Monday nights on CTV at 8 p.m. We'd love for you to come along on this ride. I'm so grateful to you women. Stay tuned. We love our listeners. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. We will see you next time, folks. Totally do.